This video is made with the sponsorship of Ecrotech New Zealand, one source for all your beekeeping requirements. Hi, Trev here from Trevs Bees, Facebook and YouTube. Well, we've just finished stage one, making cutting the boxes to length, the pieces. So now we're going to nip through to the other workshop and cut all the rebates, and then we'll do the handles in a further video. Okay, so what we've got to do this time around is we need to cut the vertical cut down here and here. So that'll be done on the saw bench like that. Having put those two cuts in, and so we need to set the height 9mm, and we need to set the depth back from the fence, and in this case 19mm, and then we'll do the long cut through here, which will be fence the same height, and this one here away from the fence will be at 13mm, and then we need to trim out the pieces. So this part will be a bit disjointed, it'll stop and start. You don't need to see me go through all the hard setup. We'll show you how I go about it, but not as much time as I spend. So the first thing I've got to do is I've got to take the cover off. This cover on here is purely to collect dust, whatever. It doesn't do anything as far as safety is concerned. Just as a little thing. These things are sharp, going at a very fast speed, and by the time you get to my age, you still want to be able to count to 10. If you can't count to 10, and this thing's got one of them, then you've been doing something wrong. Safety, safety, safety. I have a little piece of 9mm MDF. This is what I set the saw to. When you're setting the height of a saw, you should take it down below where you want and then bring the blade up to the height you require. That way the blade won't drop while you're cutting. So first thing we're going to do is wind the blade well down. This saw bench has a very fine thread on the adjustment. It takes me a while to wind it up and down, but it means that I can get the saw adjusted a lot easier. So now I have taken that down below the level of the 9mm, as you can see. Now from there, when it's going down, I've now got to go 1, 2 and a half, 3 turns, 3.5 turns before I've actually taken the pressure back up to start lifting that blade up. So now I'm just going to find the right tooth that I want. One there, which is a tooth that's pointing out this way. Not too high. Okay, that's now set at 9mm high. I now need to set the outside of this tooth to the fence to be 19mm. It should be pretty close. Alright, I always do test cuts before I actually get to start on my real bits of timber. So, noise off. So now I'm going to check my settings, finish cut, and that's going to leave me with exactly 10 millimetres. So I've got that right. Now I want to know the width of the there, and that's cut 19.5 millimetres, so it's a little bit wide. So what I'm going to do is just undo that slightly, give that a little bit of adjust for 0.5 millimetre, clamp that closed. I'll do another test cut. That now spot on. So now having set the saw, we will now make the cuts appropriately, and I will check each board as I go to make sure that I'm cutting on the worst side, because this is the outside on this board, so a little bit of snipe on here, so I will put the rebate on this side, so any defects will go inside the box. Okay, so we've cut the vertical cuts on here, and now we want to cut the rebate for the frames to be able to sit on. And I know that's 13 millimetres. Just the thing I forgot to show you before, I've made my own little drawing. So this is, so I know how, so I don't have to refer to the practical beekeeping, and I know that the ends are 405, 485 for the sides, a full depth is 240, a 3/4 is 185, a half is 133, and down here, normally 20 millimetre timber, and it's 13 mil deep, so I cut 10 millimetres and 10 millimetres. The big thing is I want to be left with 10 millimetres over here. So we're going to do this cut here now. We don't have to set the height because it's already been established with this cut. All I've got to do now is shift the fence sideways. It's important to actually do them steps around this way. This way you only got to shift one blade at a time, one thing at a time. So now the next thing I will do is I'll just check to make sure that I end up with the best edge that I can to make the boxes with. Remembering to cut from the same side. so the last thing we've got to do now is we've got to chop out these pieces to make the rebates. So again, I do the ends first and then I do the top rebate. The reason for that is I like to end up with a nice clean cut. Saw cuts better on the longitudinal cut than it does on the cross cut. When you're cutting across the grain, you never get as clean a cut, so you get little furry edges. You don't get those furry edges on here. And what we want to do is end up with a box that's nice and clean with no furry edges that we have to sand up. So we need to make sure that the gap between here, the frame and the saw blade is 10 millimeters, because that's what I want to finish up with. And if you've done it correctly, you should be pretty close to 10 millimeters anyway. I have to shift that about a half a millimeter. Now we have to set the height of this cut so it takes out that corner piece. So when it's coming through here, it's coming up to the height of that blade. So we'll just wind that up so you can see that. Okay, so what we've done is we've set the height of the blade down here so it comes up about halfway through that cut that we've already made, and we've set the fence exactly so that the width is right. So saying that, we're going to put that through here like that, put the bucket over here to catch the rubbish, and I use my block of wood that I've cut off on my drop saw to hold that in there so my hands are out of the way and everything is done nice and sweet and safely. Alright, so the last cut we've got to make now is we've just got to take this top rebate off. So we need to lower the saw down and bring it back to its position. That's it, doesn't take much to set, everything else is done. Okay, so all the rebates are done. What we now do, we now need to thickness these down so we can now make them 185 millimeters for the thickness of the depth of the super. So I've got a gauge on here. That's it, that one's set. I need to adjust the height on here, and I need to put my guard back. Okay, we've put the dust extractor back on the top, and I like that on there when I'm doing rip cutting. Makes it a bit cleaner and a little bit safer, and I've raised up the riving knife. A little safety tip here that you won't find in very many books. When you set the height of the blade, we've got the gullet underneath the teeth, and that needs to be just clear of the thickness of the timber that you're cutting. If you bring the blade right up And we can do that just so you can see how high this blade can come up. In this situation, you've already cut the wood here, and when you're pushing it through, the tooth on the back, which is going upwards and almost directly upwards, can grab the piece of wood and throw it out of the saw. It is very, very dangerous. I see a lot of people not drop the saw blade down to its proper working height. It is very, very dangerous. So we'll drop past where I want, bring it up. That's what it is. I need to make sure I put the rebate on this side, so I'll make sure that my timber is lined up to go in the saw that way. Remember, I have to do the ends and the sides, and because I put them all through the same set, they will be identical. Okay, so now we have got to the stage where this is all offcuts, but they're offcuts that I can use. They'll go straight into making, or can be used if I resize them, into making top feeders, hive mats, or any other job that I wish to do. So none of that is wasted. And I'm left here now with my sides and my 6 end plates. The last thing we've got to do is we've got to put handles in these. And that's a little interesting little exercise on its own. Now it may seem as though it's taken a while to make these, half a dozen boxes or 3 boxes, but when I'm actually making boxes, I do 100 at a time. And I can make 100 boxes in a day. So that's taking them off the pile of timber out the back. It's a heavy day, full 8 hours, and by the time I dock them off, put them through. So with 8 hours work, it's not bad, and that includes making the handles. So that's our next job, is making handles. Well, that's making the boxes on Trevs Bees, Facebook and YouTube. Our next video is going to be putting the handles in here. So that's a separate topic and worth playing for on its own. So we'll catch you around in the beehive.